The email arrived at 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday, right when I was 3 fingers deep into debugging a memory leak that had been haunting our production environment for 2 weeks. Subject line: exciting organizational evolution. I should have known right then. Nothing good ever comes from an exclamation point in corporate communications. Dear team, it began, in that saccharine tone that HR workshops teach middle managers to deploy before dropping grenades. As part of our commitment to operational excellence and knowledge democratization, we're implementing a mentorship initiative to ensure continuity across all technical functions. Mentorship initiative. I read that twice. Let it sit on my tongue like sour milk. What they meant was, train someone cheaper to do your job, then we'll escort you out with a cardboard box and a handshake that feels like a threat. I'm Naomi Chen, 41 years old, senior systems architect, and the person who built the proprietary data orchestration platform that processes every transaction, every customer interaction, every damn breath this company takes. 15 years of nights, weekends, and missed birthdays condensed into 847,000 lines of code that nobody else truly understands. And now they wanted me to hand it over to someone named Kira, who, according to her LinkedIn, graduated 6 months ago with a degree in information systems and a minor in social media marketing. Perfect. The next morning, I walked into the conference room they designated for our knowledge transfer sessions. Kira was already there, laptop open, wearing a blazer that still had the fold creases in it, and a smile so bright it could guide ships through fog. "Oh my God, you're Naomi," she chirped, standing up like I was a celebrity. "I've heard so much about you. This is such an honor." I set my coffee down, black, no sugar, brewed from the machine I brought from home because the office coffee tastes like regret filtered through corporate policy, and looked at her. Really looked at her. Mid-20s. Eager. Probably still believed that hard work got rewarded and that senior management actually read the suggestion box submissions. She had that glow people get before this place grinds them down into compliance. "Let's get started," I said, pulling up a chair. For the next 3 hours, I walked her through the basics. Not the real architecture, just the surface layer. The UI dashboards, the standard query templates, the user-facing documentation that anyone with half a brain could Google their way through. She took notes furiously, nodding along like I was revealing the secrets of the universe. "This is amazing," she said at one point, eyes wide. "I can't believe how intuitive this system is." I almost laughed. Intuitive. That's what 15 years of obsessive optimization looks like when you're staring at the finished product. What she didn't see were the 3 complete rewrites, the all-nighters fueled by spite and Mountain Dew, the heated arguments with executives who wanted to cut corners on encryption because nobody's going to hack us anyway. But I just smiled and said, "Glad you think so." That night, I went home and opened the repository, the real one, not the sanitized version they kept on the company GitHub. This was my private backup, stored on encrypted drives across 3 separate cloud services under an LLC I'd registered years ago during a particularly paranoid phase. The source code, the actual beating heart of the platform. See, here's what they didn't know, what nobody bothered to check because they assumed I was just another salaried employee churning out code on company time. I owned it. Every algorithm, every optimization, every elegant solution that made their billion-dollar revenue stream possible. I'd built the first version on my own hardware, on my own dime, during nights and weekends before they even hired me. When they brought me on full-time, I'd licensed it to them, not sold it. Licensed it, under terms buried so deep in my employment contract that their lawyers had skimmed right past it. Section 7, subsection D, Clause 12. Proprietary technology developed prior to employment and subsequently integrated into company operations shall remain the intellectual property of the original author, licensed under renewable annual terms contingent on active employment status and mutual agreement. In plain English, if they fired me, or if I quit, the license expired. Immediately, automatically, with no grace period. And without that license, without my code, Their entire platform would revert to the buggy, half-functional mess they'd been running before I showed up. I sipped my wine, a decent Merlot I'd been saving for a special occasion, and watched the cursor blink in my terminal window. Not yet, but soon. The training sessions continued. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 hours each. Kira was diligent, I'd give her that. She asked good questions, caught on to patterns quickly, even started making suggestions for UI improvements that weren't half bad. You know, she said during our second week, I was thinking, what if we added a real-time alert system for anomalous transactions, like something that flags unusual patterns before they become problems? I nodded slowly. That's actually a solid idea. Really? Her face lit up. I was nervous to suggest it. I know you're the expert and you're learning, I said. That's the point. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already built that feature 3 years ago. It was sitting in a branch called Anomaly Detection V4 in my private repo, fully tested and ready to deploy. But management had rejected it because the implementation would have required hiring 2 additional engineers to monitor the alerts, and that wasn't in the budget. Meanwhile, I started noticing the small shifts. The way Derek from infrastructure stopped inviting me to architectural planning meetings. How Susan in product started CCing Kira on emails that used to come only to me. The subtle redistribution of responsibilities, like watching someone slowly empty a bucket by moving 1 spoonful of water at a time. They were setting the stage. One Wednesday afternoon, Kira asked me about the core processing engine. How exactly does the transaction router handle concurrency? I've been trying to trace through the code, but I keep hitting these authentication barriers. I took a slow sip of coffee. Authentication barriers? Yeah, like the source code is on GitHub, but when I try to pull certain modules, I get access denied errors. IT said it might be a permissions issue, but they haven't gotten back to me yet. Because those modules don't exist on the company GitHub, I thought. They exist on my personal infrastructure, compiled into binary libraries that get pulled during build processes through automated scripts nobody's bothered to audit in 8 years. I'll look into it, she said. Probably just a config issue. That night, I started documenting everything. Every conversation, every training session, every email about the mentorship program. I recorded our meetings with Kira's verbal consent, very legally, and saved transcripts to the same encrypted drives where my source code lived. I also made a small adjustment to the licensing metadata embedded in the compiled binaries, added a quiet little check that would trigger if my employment status changed in the HR database. Nothing dramatic. Just a countdown timer that would mark the license as expired after 72 hours. Tick, tick, tick. The axe fell on a Tuesday. They called it a workforce optimization meeting. Just me, Susan from HR, and Derek from infrastructure, sitting in a glass-walled conference room that felt like a fish tank designed specifically for public humiliation. Susan did the talking. She had that practice sympathy voice. The one they teach in termination seminars, where every word is carefully chosen to avoid legal liability while still sounding vaguely human. Naomi, as you know, we've been working to ensure knowledge continuity across all critical functions. You've done an incredible job mentoring Kira, and we're confident that the transition— You're firing me, I said, not a question. Susan hesitated just for a moment. We prefer to call it a strategic restructuring. Your role is being redefined, and unfortunately, you're firing me, I repeated. After 15 years, after I built the platform that keeps this company running, you're firing me and keeping the new graduate who doesn't even understand why her authentication requests keep getting denied. Derek shifted uncomfortably. It's not personal, Naomi. It's about long-term sustainability, and she's cheaper. I finished. Costs a third of my salary, probably. Maybe less. Nobody contradicted me. Susan slid a folder across the table.
We're offering a generous severance package, 6 months of salary, extended health benefits, and a strong reference letter, all contingent on signing the non-disclosure and non-compete agreements by end of day Friday. I opened the folder, scanned the numbers. It was actually decent by corporate backstabbing standards. And if I don't sign, I asked, then we can only offer the standard 2-week severance as required by your employment contract. I closed the folder, stood up. I'll think about it. We'll need an answer by... I said, I'll think about it. I walked out, took the elevator down to the lobby, pushed through the glass doors into the parking lot where my car was waiting, still warm from the morning commute that felt like it had happened in a different lifetime. My phone buzzed. A text from Kara. Hey, just wanted to say I hope everything is okay. Susan mentioned you had a meeting and I'm here if you need anything. You've been such an amazing mentor. Heart. She didn't know. They hadn't told her yet that she was my replacement, that her entire purpose was to be the cheaper, more compliant version of me, that every question she had asked, every note she had taken was part of a plan to make me redundant. Part of me wanted to warn her, tell her how this ends, how companies like this chew through.
People like disposable razors and then act surprised when the quality drops. But I didn't. Instead, I drove home, poured that Merlot I'd been saving, and I opened my laptop. The countdown timer I'd embedded in the licensing check was now active, 72 hours from the moment HR updated my status to terminated in their database, which they'd done at exactly 2:14 p.m., I'd gotten the automated exit email. The license would expire. And when it expired, every compiled binary that contained my proprietary code would stop functioning. Not crash, not throw errors, just stop. Return null. Output nothing. Like trying to run a car after you've quietly removed the engine. I pulled up my private repository and reviewed the code one last time. Everything was clean, documented, legally airtight. I owned this. I'd built it, and they'd forgotten to ask whether they actually had the right to keep using it after they tossed me aside. 72 hours. I took a sip of wine and watched the clock. The first sign came on Thursday morning. I wasn't in the office, obviously, but I still had access to the company's external monitoring dashboard, the one that tracked system health metrics for clients and partners. It was supposed to be revoked immediately upon termination, but IT was apparently behind on their exit checklist. At 9:47 a.m., I watched a transaction processing latency spike appear on the graph. Not huge, just 0.3 seconds above baseline. Probably nobody even noticed, except I noticed, because I knew exactly what was causing it. The license validation check was running. Every time a core module tried to execute, it was pinging the licensing server I controlled, verifying that the employment status in their HR database matched the terms of my contract. And every time, it was getting the same response. Active license, continue operations. But that countdown was still ticking. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, one of the few people in engineering who'd always been straight with me. They're freaking out about some performance issues. Kira's trying to troubleshoot, but nobody can figure out what's causing the slowdown. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? SME. I texted back, sorry, no longer employed there. Good luck, though. By Thursday afternoon, the latency had climbed to 1.2 seconds, still within acceptable parameters, but trending wrong. Derek sent out a company-wide email asking if anyone had made recent changes to the core processing engine. Kira replied all. I haven't modified anything, just reviewing documentation and running test queries. Could this be related to the authentication issues Naomi and I were discussing? Oh, sweetie. I poured another glass of wine and kept watching. Friday morning, I signed the severance package. 6 months salary, health benefits, reference letter, all of it. The non-disclosure agreement meant I couldn't disparage the company or reveal proprietary information. The non-compete meant I couldn't work for direct competitors for 18 months.
Fine. I had no intention of working for their competitors. I had other plans. Susan from HR sent a reply within 10 minutes. Thank you for your professionalism during this transition. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Professional. That's what they called it when you agreed to walk quietly off the plank instead of making noise. I hit send on one more email before closing my laptop. This one went to my lawyer, the one I'd kept on retainer since I first registered that LLC 8 years ago. Subject line, license expiration notice. Prepare documentation. The timer now read 23 hours, 14 minutes. Saturday was quiet. I slept in, made pancakes, took a long walk through the park near my apartment where kids were playing soccer and someone was flying a kite that looked like a dragon. Normal. Peaceful. The kind of day that exists in a different universe from the one in which your entire career just got flushed down the toilet by people who thought you were replaceable. My phone stayed silent until 6:47 p.m. Then it started buzzing and didn't stop. Rachel. Naomi, call me. Something is seriously wrong. Unknown number. This is Derek Morrison from Apex Solutions. We need to discuss an urgent system issue. Please call back immediately. Kira. Naomi, I don't know what's happening, but the entire platform is down and they're asking me questions I don't know how to answer, and I'm really scared. Please, can you help? Another unknown number. Ms. Chen, this is Jennifer Alvarez from Legal. We need to speak with you regarding proprietary systems. This is time sensitive. I didn't call anyone back. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked the external monitoring dashboard, which IT had finally remembered to revoke my access to, but not before I'd set up a mirror feed through a partner API that nobody knew existed. The graphs look like an electrocardiogram during cardiac arrest. Transaction processing, flatlined. Database queries, timing out. API endpoints, returning empty responses. System health, critical failure across all nodes. The countdown timer had hit 0 at exactly 5:12 p.m., right when the automated Sunday backup process would have been running. The license check had failed, and without a valid license, every module I'd built, every optimization I'd coded, every elegant solution that made their billion-dollar platform actually work had simply stopped. Not crashed. Stopped. Like I designed it to.